Greetings, Tau WIN. Have I got a special video for you today? A couple of things. I'm going to be talking about the Sheffield Super Major that I've recently just been to last weekend, that I came ninth in. And I'm also going to be talking about something that's really bizarre. I find myself in a position where I'm actually doing, some might say, pretty well. Currently ranked second in the world in the ITC rankings. So we're going to be potentially discussing, can Tau win the ITC this year? Mental, right? I've never been in this position before to be this high up in the rankings, and I'm kind of excited but also a little bit shell-shocked, if I'm honest. Didn't expect it. But the other thing that I'm going to be discussing as well is the next event, the big event that I've got coming up, which is the WTC WARMASTERS, and I cannot wait, super excited. So, let's get straight into it. So, as you all know, I'm the Tau guy. I've been the Tau guy for many years, and I've done quite well for myself in terms of just being consistent, winning top Tau for the ITC rankings in multiple years. And one of the things that I'm kind of like really focused on is improving my ability to play the game as an overall general rather than just as a Tau player. And I think over the last, I'd say, 6 months to a year, I've seemed to have found a little bit of a step in my stride, if you will. And I think that's down to two things. One, my community that I built within the Pure Tau program, looking at the lists, being able to inspire, motivate others to find their groove with Tau, and obviously rooting for me on the sidelines, wanting me to do well and actually prove that these concepts that I come up with can actually work. And the second thing is that because I've not really focused on the results, I've just focused on playing the game, focusing on what's in front of me, and I'm always a firm believer that if you chase an outcome, just solely chasing the outcome of like going, for example, X and 1, or I want to win, I want a podium, or I'd like to break this barrier of 3 and 2, 4 and 1, whatever target you put on there, the best that you can ever achieve is that outcome. So you're kind of setting yourself up for failure, just like me speaking then. So you're setting yourself up for failure. Now, one philosophy that I've had in just general kind of life is always focus on the behaviours, and the outcome will look after itself. And it's a lot of it's my, shall we say, my signature when I come to coaching people within my Discord and within one-to-ones. Is let's have a look at the behaviours that you need to do to get to your goal, rather than just focusing purely on the goal itself. So I think with that, I'm constantly playing high-level players in the UK, on the UKTC scene, and I've been challenged and beaten by some better generals in the history of me playing 40k, and it's really kind of helped me progress, but only when I drop my ego. And I know this video is kind of centered around some of my success that I've had, but there's an important lesson to be learned from my experience, which is when I used to play back in the day at the events down in Element Games and playing against like a lot of Team England players, I was very frustrated because I was called Icarus. I used to fly too close to the sun, and I could never break that day 2 that I'd just get absolutely slammed by way better generals than me. And it used to frustrate me because I was always thinking, well, what is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm doing that's not getting me, that 4 and 1 or podiuming? So I knew I had some sort of ability to do this. I just couldn't figure out what it was that I wasn't doing correctly, or the kind of tricks that I was missing. And I never used to stop and ask my opponents, what was it that you spotted that I didn't? Where were my mistakes? What would you have done differently? What could I have done? And that actual behaviour there was what I was missing. It was the component that I was missing to improve or evolve as a player. So when I actually started to ask those questions and be less harsh on myself in terms of, I've just not done it again, I've been beaten again, and kind of egotistical in a little way, in a weird way, because it was like, I should be able to do this, I, rather than we. And when I started to open up and talk to players, I suddenly started to realise there was a pattern within these top competitive players, and there's lots of them out there. And the pattern is purely like looking at your results, thinking about decisions that you could have made in the game, like trading your resources, like what is the task that I'm giving this unit in my list to do. You know, when do I need to trade units up or down? Am I focusing on the primary? Am I keeping track of it? And some of these key behaviours, if I was just to list, is one, always keep track of your scoreboard sheet, like whether you're using the app or pen and paper or a laminate, like always do it, because you can see the points within the game and see how close you are to know that when you need to push or when you need to be reserved. And then looking for basic kind of positioning and deployment improvements that you can do, because I think a game can be won or lost based off poor or a great deployment. And then in game, you're just repeating that action of going, okay, well, I've deployed correctly. Am I positioning my units to be able to reach next turn, reach opponents' like key trading pieces or key damage dealing pieces? And then you've got to think, okay, have I also positioned my units to be able to achieve certain secondaries? And obviously within the 10.5 edition, shall we call it, we've got some new secondaries and some changes to the core game, like not being able to fall back and do actions even if you're eligible to shoot, or advance and do actions. So these are subtle but very important changes that if you're listening and you're a newer player or you're trying to find your groove, I would just fundamentally focus on, you know, achieving primary by keeping the primary scores in check and looking at, you know, if you've been denied 5 points, can you deny the opponent 5 points to keep it steady scoring between you both? Secondaries, are you positioning your units in great positions to be able to achieve cards should they come up? An example that I like to give is if, as a Tau player, you're taking a ghost keel or something quite fast. Take a ghost keel, for example. He's not that fast, but if you position a ghost keel from deployment 13 inches away from the 40mm objective marker in the centre of the battlefield, if you draw area denial, if you draw area denial, you can get those points just by moving 10. If you deploy 16 inches away with something, you could then do establish locus. So there's lots of little things that you can do on the planning stage rather than just in-game. So that's just a little bit of a segment in terms of what I would like, what information I would like to pass on to you newer players or your beginners, intermediate or advanced tacticians, because I think sometimes we can forget about some of the fundamentals and just focus too much on damage. What does my opponent's army do? How can I counter that? So on and so forth. The list is endless. So yeah, if you look at some of the performances recently, obviously my last big super majors that I've done really well at have been Goonhammer, where I came second. I've had Manchester, Oxford and Bristol. These I went undefeated. Goonhammer I lost to Josh Roberts, the eventual winner, who is currently number 1 in the ITC rankings. And I think I've created some sort of consistency within my performance on those things that I've just mentioned. It's not all about an ability to be able to always beat whoever comes your way or whatever army, but because I'm focusing on the fundamentals and not really focusing on like, oh, I'm worried that if I go into this army X, Y and Z, then I'm going to struggle. I'm focusing on my list that I've made, what I want it to do, and then I've also focused on the meta-analysis provided by our lovely brothers over at StatCheck, and then the Goonhammer articles as well are phenomenal for doing research. So I think one of my biggest skills have been identifying the meta, where it stands, and what we need to do as Tau players within our lists to combat said changes in the meta. So that is a very powerful thing that you should never underestimate. Doing a bit of research and planning. You know what they say, you know, if you fail to plan, your plan will go to fail. So yeah, the last one, Sheffield, I ended up going 4 wins and 1 draw. Hats off to my brother Ben Jones over at Vanguard Tactics. We played each other 0 times when we were together on Vanguard Tactics, And then since I've departed from Vanguard Tactics and set up the Pure Type program, I've played Ben Jones 3 times in back-to-back Super Majors, beating him twice, close games, really tactical, but this time he got his revenge. So hats off to you, Ben. You're one of my favourite opponents, and I'd love to play you every single time at events. You're an absolute legend, so thanks very much for the tight game. So, if we have a look at the actual rankings themselves, the ITC rankings are basically when you go to tournaments and they're ITC registered. When you take part, you will be awarded points for your participation, and those points are rewarded depending on the points that you get are depending on your performance. So when a lot of people think, oh, I need to go X and 1 or I need to win, they're looking for the more points, to gather more points so that they can be in a chance to win best in faction or just genuinely improve themselves by looking at the rankings metrics and seeing them go up and up and up or down and down and down. So it's a good way of monitoring performance, but if you're numbers driven, then try to take a step back, like I said before, and look at the behaviours. And we do have the ITC Battles app, where you can record your games and it will give you kind of a breakdown of your go first win rate, your go second win rate, your overall win rate. But the ones that I'm more interested in are your average battle points that you're scoring, and obviously your loss differential, because those two particular key KPIs, if you call them, will show you what behaviours you need to start doing or stop doing. Now, if you just focus on, alright, a lot of my students, especially the newer ones, go to events and be like, okay, well, I just want to achieve an average of 70 points per game, or I'm currently only tracking at 50, so I want to just steadily improve that. So they're going in with that mentality of like, I'm not going for the wins or how many losses. It doesn't really reflect the journey that they're currently on. And they're going into the event going, I just want to score 70 plus points. And because they're focused on that data, then they're not really worrying or fretting about win, loss, or draw. And honestly, if you don't already do this, start doing it. It will definitely improve your performance whilst also taking the pressure off when you go to these events. So yeah, we've got the overall rankings, and you've obviously got the best in faction. So obviously I'm currently number 1 with Tau in the best in faction. So have a look here, let it load. So I'm currently number 1. Brandon Valley from over the seas is head on my heels, so I've got to watch out for him. James Hobbs, and then we've got a few other people as well, but it's early game yet, anything can happen. So I'm currently holding on to top Tau. Then we've got the overall rankings, and we've got the likes of Josh Roberts, a phenomenal player, absolutely been killing it on the scene with his Necrons, and on Sheffield he switched to CSM. Then we've got the man who needs no introduction, Manny Chima, and we got Justin Moore, and we've also got Jack Tite. These are the top 5. Jack Tite is a phenomenal player again, currently playing with Sisters. Always has been a Sisters player, so it's not just, oh, I'm going to jump on Sisters now because they're broken. He's always been very, very, very kind of set on playing those Sisters of Battle. And there's plenty of other names to mention. But like I said, the season is very early at the moment. It doesn't end until the end of LVO, which is in January. So we're about halfway through the season, so it's anyone's game. So I'm really proud of this. This is probably one of my proudest moments. Never even planned to be, top 10. I think last year I was like in top 25 in the world, and suddenly I'm second. So I've not been thinking about this, honestly, guys. I've just generally carried on doing what I'm doing. But anyway, it's enough of plugging, and hopefully this little bit of information that I've given you about the ITC and how it works, and the behaviours that you should be focusing on if you want to improve your score has helped. So let's get on to what I actually want to talk about. And let me just change a few slides on my OBS. Is the Sheffield Super Major. So, Sheffield Super Major, what I'm going to talk about is my Kaauyon list. And before we do that, let me just flip to TTS. So, sorry, I've got my camera in the way. There we are, TTS. So, okay, UKTC. They've had a change up with the terrain. I think they've done a really good job because it was like kind of done very last minute before the event when GW dropped all of their stuff for the balanced data slate and all the core rule changes, so on and so forth. So they had to act quickly. So UKTC has been very good for line of sights, firing lanes, and they've kind of adjusted it by putting these two new ruins that are 3 inches by 9 inches long to try and break up some of those firing lanes and to add a bit of diversity to the terrain maps, which I kind of like. So I analysed the pack prior to going into list submission for the event and looked at what I wanted to achieve. Now, with the meta being very, very volatile at the moment with combat armies, such as Blood Angels, T-Suns are still around with their insane movement and the Flamers, and also you'll have, you know, maybe a couple of Wolf Jail lists. Sisters of Battle will be very strong because of their insane movement, and then you might see like some other combat armies knocking around. But I knew that the meta was going to be Sisters, T-Suns, and Blood Angels. So I prepped my Kayon list to deal with said threats. And the way that I did it was, it's kind detachment. I foregoed all enhancements, and I just took 3 characters. I took my staple, Dark Strider, and I put 2 Cadre Fireblades in the list. They had the 2 gun drones attached with them for the extra DACA, and that was my characters. Then I wanted to look at, obviously, battle line units, because battle line units are very important, and we have one of the strongest battle line units in the game. So I inserted 2 breachers with a devilfish each. And the way that I armed the drones on the breachers was a guardian drone for that sweet -1 to wound from shooting, and a gun drone just to add more DACA. And then I added 2 devilfish, all with the SMS, because I wanted to build an indirect list, because the changes to indirect hurts armies like guard or anything that could like hit on 2s and 3s, and the changes where we hit on 4s. Well, the best that we could ever achieve was hitting on 5s or 4s, depending on what was shooting the smart missile system. So I kind of wanted to bank into that. So there's 2 devilfish with SMS. Then I wanted to think about my core guide observers. So the core to a Tau army lies within stealth suits and pathfinders for our guiding. So I put in 3 identical units of stealth suits. Usually with your list now, you'll always start with just insert 3 stealth teams. And they're armed with a marker drone and a shield drone for the team leader, because you no longer need the gun drone because you're not advancing and doing actions. So an extra wound on that team leader is actually pretty good. Team leader has the fusion, and he has the battle suit support system, so he can fall back and shoot. 3 units of those, and my Pathfinder team, which has got the shield drone, recon drone, and a gun drone, because you would like to still advance and still guide. And 3 ion rifles. So that's the observer section of my army. So we've discussed characters, we've got our observers, and we've also got our battle line and breachers. Then I wanted to look at the typical elite hunters, so insert triple Riptide, all on the same, SMSs, ion rifles, and the 2 missile drones, because the SMSs are really good on Riptides because you ignore modifiers, so you can be hitting on 4s. And even if you're split firing your -1 ballistic skill, but you're hitting on 5s, doesn't matter. But that is 9 SMS shots from the Riptides in total, and they are twin link because they're on a battle suit. Then I wanted to look at our good old broadsides again. They got cheaper in units of a single or a unit of 2, so I took 2 units of 2 broadsides. Now the way I armed these was slightly different than the normal traditional, I'll take a rail, seeker, and ignore modifiers, and I went for ignore modifiers, so the weapon support system, and rails and SMS. So, and also each broadside has got 2 missile drones each. So this unit is doing the 4 rail shots for the dedicated anti-tank, and then can follow up and deal with elite. It's got 8 SMS shots in total, but they're twin linked and they hit on 4s. So because they ignore modifiers, they just hit on 4s. So then that's 2 identical units there. So we've got SMS is 8 per unit, so that's 16 SMS from the broadsides, 9 SMS from the Riptides. And then you got 2 iron hammerheads. Now these were put in because not only can they deal with tanks, because they have the once per game Seeker missiles, but I took the Ion over the rail because D6 plus 3 blast is a very good profile into a lot of things, and obviously overcharged your AP2 flat 3 damage, and there's not a lot of flat 3 damage out there, and I think that I wanted the hammerheads to be able to punch up against tanks early game. If they're guided by stealth, they're going to be hitting on 2s because you get +1 to hit vehicles or monsters, then your +1 ballistic skill, and then you're rerolling 1s to hit and 1s to wound from being guided by stealth teams. And then you've got the free reroll that it comes with innately. So those Seeker missiles can actually punch up in the early game, and then when your ion cannon starts popping off with sustain hits 2 in turn 3, it becomes really, really brutal. And then in the theme of the SMS, I've just given them SMS as well. So if we just break down the SMS, these hammerheads have twin-linked SMS on the app. The app is more up-to-date than the book, so currently they have twin-linked SMS. Now, you've got these 3 riptides and these broadsides all ignore modifiers, so that totals 25, because it's 16 plus 9. That's 25 SMS shots that are hitting on 4s, ignoring modifiers, and twin-linked. Perfect. So that's 25 SMS. Then you've got 6 and 6. That's 12 SMS. They aren't ignoring modifiers, but they've got the free reroll. So when you're hiding these hammerheads and you're just shooting the SMS at the beginning, because you're waiting for the optimal targets to shoot your Seekers and your iron cannon, then you've got a free reroll. So 6 shots per hammerhead. So you hit 2 of them, you get a free reroll, you might get a 3rd, and then you're twin linked. So that totals then 12 plus the 25. That's 37 SMS shots that are twin linked. Okay, so 37 SMS shots that are twin linked, and then you've got the 2 devilfish that have got the SMS. That's 12 shots that are not ignoring modifiers and not twin linked. So that'll be 49 SMS shots in this list. The reason SMS was so important is because a lot of people will be taking battle line units or small trading pieces, and the problem with Tau is that sometimes you can be forced to try and dig out your opponent, and that means overcommitting some of your resources like breaches or a riptide, and then you potentially face having them removed in the clapback. So I wanted to be able to just dump all of my SMS into key resources like a trading piece, like a 5-man scout or a 5 marine jump pack unit that's trying to hide behind a wall, or maybe they've got small units to go and do actions. Well, my philosophy is that, well, if I remove those or put pressure on those early game, late game, they're going to have these big damage dealers that are forced potentially to do actions. So the SMS was crucial into the success of this list. And then everything else, I've got enough anti-tank in the forms of my 2 broadsides and the hammerheads with the Seekers. Riptides could even jump into that role at a pinch. And then the elites, I can deal with the elites with the riptides with the flat 4 damage, AP3, D6, and then when sustain, sorry, not D6, 6 shots. And then when sustain kicks off, my god, it makes these riptides brutal. And then I've got my breaches to be able to do primary play, stealth suits, pathfinders to be able to do guiding, but also can do secondaries as well. So the list is well designed, and if you wanted to run a Kaauyon list on UKTC, I would definitely recommend this list. And just to do one other little demonstration is in terms of a deployment, I just want to show you kind of roughly what I would do in terms of deployment. And let's just consider, you're having it all on the board, right? You've got an army that's going to be aggressive, so you want to basically be aggressive immediately. So the broadsides can kind of go here and here. Devilfish, I'm just going to be really quick with this. Devilfish goes here with Darkstrider in. I'm not going to be too precious, guys, because I don't want to be here for hours. I'll put a stealth team in reserve. You could have a stealth team here. Stealth team here. Pathfinder the team can be here. Riptides, you could have Riptide. 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 This devilfish has breaches in it. Hammerhead. And you can have hammerhead. Okay. And then you can have Dark Strider in the Devilfish, and then you could have a breach team, for example, just in here somewhere, okay? So let's just adjust something. And a breach team. Something like so. I'm not going to be too precious, but like what was set up here, right, is angles. So for example, the broadsides can move this way, pivot with their guns, and shoot all the way down there. They could even shoot down here, and they can also move out here and shoot down there. These broadsides here can move out, pivot, shoot all the way down there, shoot down here, and potentially shoot down there, whilst also covering the centre. The Devilfish, the Pathfinders, can assert themselves by establishing a foothold to fortify this objective. And the Riptides, again, can move up. They can also cover this firing lane. Same with this one that can move it that way and do that. You can also move out to here and shoot down there. And you can position it in such a way where it can go both ways. And then the Iron Hammerhead can also do the same. Move out here, shoot down here or down there. And the Riptide can also shoot down there or down here as well. Depending on what you're going against, you might, want to adjust your deployment. And this here, if they've not got that much shooting, you can deploy aggressively here, and you can actually move this way and get angles into this little pocket here. And Devilfishes can obviously go forward. You can start to deny their primary, and over here you've got some breaches that can go and hop into the Devilfish because this is going to scout move this way. Pathfinders can scout move into the Devilfish and do the Grundy maneuver, and then you're covering all the firing lanes. So you just to show you again, covering the firing lane down there. You can even cover the firing lane down there. You can get some cheeky line of sights down here. You can also get some line of sights down here, and mainly you want to cover these firing lanes down there as well. So that's kind of like a little example of some of my thought process when it comes to deployment. And if you do want to know more about kind of deployment and how to really utilize your units, come and join the Pure Type program. On the Shasbury and above level, I do have a specific channel for deployment, and we do plenty of videos that are uploaded onto the content library within WAP to help you with the very important phase when it comes to Tau. So if you like that demonstration, come and join the Pure Type program for more. So if we now go on to the actual event itself and show you what games I had, and then I can move into one of the last things I want to talk about, which is an event that I'm putting on, the masterclass for the WTC. But let's go through to the result. So if you look here, I played round one, which was Chaos Demons. You had a Greater Unclean one, Bloodthirster, Blood Crushers, lots of Screamers, Fiends, Beasts of Nurgle, and a Blood Master on Blood Throne or whatever it's called. So we played on the first mission, which I've just shown you on that deployment. It was sweeping engagement, and the mission was swift action for battle line units to be able to advance and do actions. My opponent ended up going first, and we were playing Terraform was the main primary. What you'll notice here is that with all the angles that I was setting up before, there wasn't any areas he could go to be safe. And my SMS was taking away his trading pieces, like I mentioned, and I was able to pull off a solid victory by picking off his scoring units, because you can see by turn 3, he was not... after turn 3, he didn't really achieve any secondaries because I was putting pressure on his small pieces. So my primary ended up being 44, his was 12, and then also his secondaries was 19 and mine was 40. Then my next round, I went into a lovely gent who is a faction specialist, again with demons. So me and him had a phenomenal game because it was faction expert meet faction expert. Now he had a more brutal demons list because his had Be'lakor in, and he basically strung everything within 6 of Be'lakor. So I could only target with loan up 18. I don't have to be within 18, which opens myself up to counter charges and his damage dealers. He had this special Great Unclean one, a Great Unclean one, Be'lakor, and then a big unit of Fiends, 2 smaller Fiends, 3 units of Plague Bearers, loads of Hound units, Screamers, and a couple of a Nurgling unit and lots of other chaff, basically. So his power of his list was, you have to come to me, and if you do, I'm going to punish you with these big units. So we played on the mission, played on the deployment, which was Search and Destroy. We played Hidden Supplies, and it was Take and Hold, so basic 40k. Hold 1, 5, hold 2, 10, hold 3, 15. Now, I went first in this one. Now, I didn't shoot, I think I shot all my SMS into 3 Nurglings, and that was it. Thank you very much. I got Area Denial, and I got Cleanse. Good secondary start, and then what I ended up doing was protecting Darkstrider at all costs, because he was just denying 12-inch Deep Strike, which is huge for demons because of their, the Shadow of Chaos. So I realised that I won't be able to shoot anything, and if I continue to hold back, he can just keep his pieces alive and just do secondary, so I wanted to apply the pressure. So on turn 2, I pushed out and basically spread out my army and blocked off quite a lot of the board, which I don't think he really expected, and then hemmed him into his deployment and gave him the option to come at me, and then I can do all my damage. So I flipped the script, realised he was doing that to me, so I decided to do that to him. And then obviously the turn he does, because it was turn 2, when he does come out to retaliate to me, when he does come out, I then retaliate in his turn 3. So you'll see on the score, 95 to 57, my secondaries ended up being 40, my primaries was 45 because of the way that I pushed out, and his primaries were 25 and his secondaries were 22. Same thing. Clearing his scoring pieces enabled me to apply pressure and then forcing the issue early by going out on turn 2. If I'd have waited until turn 3, he would have been able to flip the script and actually pressure me. So it's all very, very important to control tempo of the game and not always rely on waiting till turn 3 for your guns to go hot. So that was a good game, really enjoyed it. And then went against a good player, part of Carnage guys. He plays Sisters, and we played on supply drop, so disappearing objectives, and it was sweeping engagement and rapid escalation. Now, neither of us used rapid escalation. I think we both just forgot about it, if I'm honest, and that's where you can just bring in 200 points of your battle line units turn 1, but mine were in Devilfish, so it didn't really matter. So this game was really interesting, and I honestly think Bringers of Flame is such a powerful detachment with Sisters that they can just move 21 inches with an emulator, get the girls out, should I say, 3 inches, shoot you with melters in the face. Extremely powerful. So his reach was going to be far greater than mine, but the one thing that I designed my list to do was to indirect Sisters and indirect Marines. So my SMS, in all honesty, won me this game. I was able to potentially pick up 10 Dominions a turn, or bully the Seraphim unit down to low numbers. So without the SMS, I wouldn't have been able to apply pressure to his scoring pieces, or his pieces that are hiding behind terrain and going to jump out on me. So supply drop, I went second, so I did have a big advantage with the primaries going into the later game. And you'll notice that obviously the victory came from the primaries and the secondary scores. Same thing that I've been doing the last 2 games. Shoot down the scoring pieces, get rid of the trading pieces, enables me to play the secondary mission, but hinders the opponent to try and match me. And in a primary that favours going second, I'm going to have the primary advantage, but I'm also then going to have the secondary advantage as well. So you'll notice that there's a big difference in the score, 86-44. So yeah, that was a really good game, and I was surprised because I was a bit worried going into Systems Bringers of Flame because I'd not played them before, but I knew exactly what kind of tricks they could do, and I respected them, but also just focused on the same battle plan, clearing their chaff, their trading pieces, their scoring pieces. So the most exciting game was the Space Wolves. This was played on Search and Destroy, prepared positions, didn't really come into play. But the Search and Destroy to play Space Wolves Thunderwolf Cavalry is a nightmare. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Every time I play Space Wolves, it's always on Search and Destroy. So Space Wolf player just deployed pretty much everything on the line and went to go first because he knew that if he didn't, he would lose the game anyway. And guess what? He went first. And I made a critical error. I asked about his ability to come in turn 1, and I specifically said, can you rapid ingress? He was like, yes. I didn't think he could just come in turn 1. That was a duh moment from my brain. So anyway, he came in, made two 9-inch made the charges, got into my lines. I had 12 Thunderwolf Cavalry in my lines. I'm not going to go into all of the tactics because I've gone over it within my Discord, but I had to do some absolute golden plays to get myself out of this one. And I managed in my first turn to kill 7 or 8 Thunderwolf Cavalry because of these clever plays to minimise where they can surge into and not redeploy but reactive moves. So it's a very fast army that hits you hard. It's very telegraphed, comes in, hits you hard. Then if you move and you end within 9 reactive moves, and when you shoot it, it surge moves and it can surge move into combat. So you have to be very clever where you position your units and how you trigger that reactive move ability. So this one, I again second helped me with the burden of trust because in that later game I was able to rack up points. I wasn't really bothered about holding primary early because if I did so it would overextend and therefore allow him to gain momentum. So I deliberately scored low on the primary for turns 2, didn't get any primary turn 3, and then obviously turn 4 and turn 5 managed to kind of claw the deficit back. So I got 30 versus his 22, and then secondaries, he got 25 and I got 38. So 78-57. Then the final one, Scorched Earth, against my good friend Ben Jones that I've mentioned earlier in this video. He was running his Gladius Task Force, Dark Angels with, just loads of Inner Circle Terminators, units, big unit of 10 Hellblasters, which is amazing, by the way. Ben dropped the Lion in favour of this unit to give him some shooting threat, and my god does it shoot. Crits on 5, so for sustained and lethals, and just point, click, and delete. So it will delete anything it points at, and it can even, he was telling me, it could even delete 2 Great Undemons that he was saying in one go, so it's crazy, crazy good. And this mission really favoured whoever was going second, and we did feed this back to the UKTC because a lot of the missions do favour whoever goes second. But not to take away anything from Ben's victory, he kept me honest with his shooting potential, and with it being on Crucible of Battle, there were some places where if I did push, I would be overextending, and I will definitely get shot in the face. So primary, he took a lead on this, a clever burn plus a couple of Deathwing Knights not dying, like a single dude. And I knew that basically to win this game, I'd have to beat him on secondaries by a considerable amount and keep the primaries in check. Now, I just fell behind too much on primaries, and he was consistent on secondaries. So my 38 versus 34, and his 45 to my 25. If I had gone second, it would have been a different ball game. I'd have been able to do the same, and then Ben would have obviously thought to do the same in terms of keeping his secondaries in check. And a lot of these missions, if you're going second and you can just score points, you just keep your resources alive to be able to do secondaries. That's it. So that's what we fed back. Just maybe changing the maps a little bit, and not allowing it just an opponent just to go, oh, I'm going second, so I'm just going to trade piece for piece for piece for piece and get loads of points and then get the big primary swing at the end. But overall, really good event. Came ninth out of 206 players, and did it with this Filthy Kaauyon list. So, hope you've enjoyed that kind of breakdown and hearing about my list. Now, the last thing I want to kind of talk about here is something that I'm going to be doing for WTC WARMASTERS. So, WTC WARMASTERS is a big prestigious event that happens before the Warhammer Teams Championships, and it's in obviously Mechelen in Belgium. It's going to have top players from all around the world. It's going to be using the WTC terrain format, and a lot of us are really excited. There's a lot of us going this year from the Pure Tau program and across the world. So these big events like LGT, WTC WARMASTERS and LVO, I do these big masterclasses, and I go through the pack, I go through everything you need to know and help prepare you and set you up for success. So just to give you a kind of sneak peek, I've got a presentation that I'm going to be giving, and it's a pack that players can take with them to the event, so they know exactly what's going on and what to do with Tau. Now this will just show you the basic stuff. I'm not going to go through that. It gives you your basic things that you need to know, which are in the player pack that WTC provide anyway. But what I do is I go through each round, I lay everything out, and I give you everything there that you need to know. I give you a basic battle plan, and obviously you've got the terrain, the visuals that you need going into each round. So you just have one player pack ready to go, ready to set up success, ready to set you up for success. Now, this is only a pack, okay? I did this for LVO and LGT, and my students absolutely loved it. The feedback was it's great having everything condensed there, knowing that I've got a plan and I can stick to it. And if something happens, the advice that you give, I can fall back on, and actually just felt like I was going into the game ready, rather than panicking and not understanding where I can deploy, where I should be deploying, when to push out. So this is just a pack. What I'm going to be doing is, within this masterclass, I've set up a WOP courses tab that's going to have loads of pre-recorded material that I'm going to be doing leading up to the event. List building. The list submission is on Sunday, so this Sunday, the 21st, and we need to get those lists in. And people are doing some last minute scrambling, checking and stuff, and I've come up with some spicy lists that I'm obviously not going to tell you because you have to join the masterclass to find those out. But I have come up with some new concepts that are absolutely going to be crucial to how you can use Tau within WTC terrain. Tau have historically been very difficult to pull off on WTC because even though they have like some light boards and mediums and heavies for like the team composition, genuinely they're harder to get firing lanes on, and Tau struggle because combat threats, staging has been quite difficult for Tau to dig out, so you lose a lot of board presence. But I've designed a list that's actually going to help us with that, and I've designed it on multiple different detachments. So if you're interested in, and you're going to WTC, then there'll be a link below, and it starts today. I'm doing a list building call at 5 o'clock, so in an hour, probably in an hour, by the time this is uploaded on YouTube, it's going to have already started, but everything is recorded. I'm going to be personalizing everybody's list to what they want and refining it to be optimized. Then I'm going to be doing videos on deployment, the missions, achieving secondaries, tactics, when to use certain stratagems. I'm going to be doing faction focus videos, looking at the top meta armies that we need to plan for. And when the list document is released for general public, I'm going to be looking at the top armies to look out for. I'm going to be talking about lots of not just theory but practical things that you can digest and really put in like the focus for WTC WARMASTERS, because it's going to be a phenomenal event. These masterclasses are always highly engaging. It's audience like focused. I do live calls but I will be backing it up with recorded material for those people that maybe can't join the live call because of time zone differences or other commitments, and I want you to get the maximum value that you can, whether you're joining in live or whether you're watching the videos on the WAP courses library, the content library. So look, when you purchase it, it will ask you to link your or claim your access. So in your orders page, it will say claim access, and the moment you claim access, it takes you to a set Discord channel for the WTC WARMASTERS, and it will also open up a content library for the WTC WARMASTERS. There are no videos currently uploaded, but they're going to be, and it's going to be daily from next week. We're going to have the video calls tonight, and also on Sunday to help people for submitting the lists. And then you'll have your own individual forum channel that you can set up and put your lists in, and I will spot check it, and I will give you all the advice that you need. And then once you're set on a list, we'll be doing videos on your list and how to deploy it, and where to deploy it, and how to use it effectively. So it's going to be ram-packed with awesome information, and you're not going to want to miss out. So thank you so much for joining on this kind of call. One thing I wanted to, not call, but video, you know what I mean. It's been a long week. I've been working a lot. I wanted to leave you with something, with the Kaauyon list. And this is quite a bizarre one. I was doing a bit of number crunching over the weekend. And I like to look at stats and numbers differently. So what I did this weekend, last weekend with Sheffield, is I had a look at my mortality rate for different units. So I wanted to see how many times I was losing said units, and what units I was using to trade, and what units were kind of used as bullies, but then how many times did I lose them, and what was the payoff and what was the downside. So I was having a look at each individual unit, and there's some really interesting data. So if you imagine this, okay, I've got 18 units in total. You know, I've got 3 Riptides, 2 Delphish, Pathfinder, 2 Breachers, 2 Cadres, 2 Hammerheads, Darkstriders, 3 Stealth Suits, and a Broadside. 2 units of 2 Broadsides, okay? So that totals 18 units. I know the characters are attached, but I'm treating them as separate. And then obviously if you times that by 5 games, that totals like 90, alright? So over the whole event, I only lost 32% of my force. 32%. That was a massive shock. What the hell? And so that shows me 2 things. Number 1, I'm obviously very good at managing my resources. But also on the top of that, it makes me think, could I have been a bit more aggressive in certain games and lost a few more to obtain more points? So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So think about in your head now, what do you think is going to be the lowest, the more survivable units? What do you think had the highest mortality rate? And what do you think had the lowest? Just think about that for a second. And then I'll go into some numbers. What I will say is, a point of pride, I didn't actually lose Darkstrider once, baby. He survived every game. So he has a 0% mortality rate. Love that guy. Absolute hero. Then, in the mid-board, I had my Breachers and Cadres at a 40% mortality rate. Because most times they were going out, denying primary, hopping in and out of Devilfish because that stratagem count is so good. My Pathfinders, I lost 3 out of 5 games, so 60% mortality rate. Breachers and Cadres had the similar number of 40% because I lost them 4 out of 10. And remember, when I say 4 out of 10, it's twice times by 5. I got 2 units times by 5, that's 10. Riptides, I only lost 3 out of 15. So that was a 20% mortality rate, proving that they're very durable. Stealth Suits was a really shocking one. You'd think that you'd lose a lot of them. I actually only lost my stealth suits 4 out of 15 times, so they had a 26 mortality rate. Broadsides. I only lost 2 broadsides, a unit of 2 broadsides once, so they had a 10% mortality rate. They were the most survivable unit in these numbers, so only 10%. The highest mortality rate was, of course, the devilfish. I lost the devilfishes 7 out of 10 times, so they had a 70% mortality rate. And then you have the hammerheads at 30%. So the top 3 in terms of the lowest mortality rate was broadsides at 10%, riptides at 20%, and hammerheads at 30%. The bottom 3, or the 3 units that had the highest mortality rate, was devilfish at number 1 with 70, pathfinders at 60, and then the breachers / cadres at 40%. So some really interesting numbers. And I always look at different ways to look at numbers, because it shows behaviours, right? That's what I said at the beginning. I can see kind of when I'm using these units and why I'm losing the pieces that I'm losing, and what are they gaining me in order to put them out in harm's way. So with that deployment exercise that I showed you, your broadsides and the hammerheads and riptides covering angles, they're not at any risk really, apart from some long-range firepower, but they are very durable. And if an opponent wants to commit to kill a riptide, they have to overcommit. And if they don't kill it, then they've just put their pieces out in the open. The breachers, because I was using them in ways that I wanted just to deny primary, setting them up, and then if they charge me, I could hop into Delphish, is why they were only at 40%. Without that stratagem of hopping into a Delphish, the combat embarkation, I'd have probably lost them a bit more. Pathfinders obviously are that early game screen, so that's why they're at 20% more than the breachers. And then the broadsides, they're very tanky. T6, 2 up save, 4 up feel no pain against devastating wounds now, so mortal wounds. Adds to their durability, and then obviously they're playing the long range game as well. And then so stealth suits, because of the wall of mirrors, they can kind of go into certain places of the board, escape kind of dangerous kill zones. You can reveal 1, not revealing the whole unit, so therefore still being able to guide, whilst also being very durable, to be fair. They are, with stealth, 3 up save, 2+ if you're benefiting from cover, if they've got AP or whatever it may be. And also then having the team leader with 3 wounds comes up quite a lot. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. It's a lot of information to take on board. I always like doing these videos because I'm able to kind of showcase a lot of things that go on, and kind of let you climb inside my brain and find out, what it is that I'm doing that's setting me apart from the rest of the competition. And as a final kind of send off, I'd say, look, the game, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. That really helps me, and that's something you can do without having to pay me a penny, and it really goes down well for my growth and my channel, and I hugely appreciate it. I really appreciate the community that's backed me for the last year and basically helped me build this business to what it is today. And I definitely don't take that lightly. I put a lot of energy and effort into all levels of my students, whether they sign up to masterclasses, whether they're just the Pathfinder, Chassepre, Chassel, does not matter. I really have a lot of pride in helping and coaching people to find consistency in the performance, and to kind of get themselves out of ruts that maybe they're not enjoying the faction. They need a little bit of inspiration, motivation, just to get back on the bandwagon. And I really enjoy those interactions. And my program is very centered around customer engagement, finding out about the people that are playing the faction. What are they good at? Maybe what are some of their barriers? How do they want to improve? How can I help them get to where they want to be, and how can I get them to achieve their goals? It doesn't have to be big, like illusions of grandeur. It could just be something simple of, I'm a new player, I want to learn how to play Tau to the best of my ability. Not a problem. I'm very straight up, and I'll tell you exactly how it is. And if you're interested, come and join. The links are going to be in below. I'm going to provide 2 links today, one of them being for your generic join the Pure Tau program, different tiers, and the other one is going to be the WTC Masterclass link. And if you are interested, sign up now. You do get access to everything for 3 months, so if you do miss the first couple of videos, don't worry, they will be recorded. But the sooner you sign up, the quicker you can get involved with us all. But anyway, Thank you very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your days and evenings, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.